Well, thank you for that. Are we live? All right, thank you. So we are live and we're ready to go. Again, the meeting was called to order at 1 p.m. I'm looking for an adoption of the agenda. Larry, you've gone through and you're moving the agenda as presented. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Let's go to number 3, the adoption of the previous minutes from February 22nd, 2022 regular council meeting. Everybody's had a chance to review those. Councillor Lewis would like to move those as presented. All in favor? That's unanimous. At this time, 1 o'clock, we have a space for public presentations. Is there anybody in the audience today that would be making a public presentation on scheduled? Come forward. As not part of the public hearing today. This is just for, it's an open area for residents to come in. Yeah, public input. Okay, come forward. And again, a reminder, you have 5 minutes today. I need you to state your name.
Is it all right if
Yep.
2 of us take 10 minutes?
Sure. Yep. And before we get started, I'll just get you to state your name, contact information, and what you'll be speaking about. Yes. Oh, is it on? There you go.
There you go. Okay. My name is David DeBruin. I'll speak on behalf of Voltaire's Group with Richard here. It'd be in regards to our interest in Northwest Quarter, Range 27, Township 49, west of the 4th, approximately 1 kilometer south of Kalmar.
Yeah, Richard Hawes, Managing Director, Voltaire's Group. Obviously, our company has a registered interest in the property that David just mentioned. There's a few reasons we've come in today, or you need contact information as well? Okay, we'll take care of that.
Okay.
There's a few reasons we've come in today. So first and foremost is because we're perplexed by statements a councillor has made to the public regarding Leduc County Council and administration's opposition to the Creekside Solar Project. This is the planned solar project that we have on the subject quarter section of land that David has mentioned. Mayor DeBlanco has made statements in various public meetings and been quoted in media that the county and council are opposed to our renewable energy project. We can only assume this sentiment has been shared directly with our prospective neighbors who have told us that 6 of 7 councillors oppose the project, leaving them questioning us during our consultations why we have not respected this council's request to locate the project elsewhere. In an effort to understand if we missed a council meeting or some other case, our team reviewed historical meeting minutes, recordings of meetings and the agendas, but have not found a record to confirm that a formal position has been taken. I would like to ask this council to provide a copy of the documentation or a recording from the council meeting where a vote for opposition was taken or where Mayor DeBlanco was authorized to speak on behalf of this council. The second reason we came in today is because on February 16th, Mayor DeBlanco had formally requested an in-person meeting with Voltaire's Group to voice the county's concerns. Well, I don't want to get into that particular meeting during this public input time. I'm simply wondering why the request was made. The Creekside Solar Project is compliant with county bylaw as a discretionary land use, and to our understanding is a matter to be addressed by Leduc County administration. We've been in discussions with administration since April of 2021 and have already completed a pre-application development permit review with them. We also presented to this council out of courtesy on December 7th in a workshop session where no vote was taken. Members of this council, as well as county administration, also participated in our public open house held on January 31st, where the meeting is recorded and still available public online. I'd like to leave this council with a copy of the mayor's request and ask that the council determine the necessity for another meeting with Voltaire's. If a meeting is required, I'd appreciate that we receive an agenda prior to the meeting and for that meeting to be held in camera due to some of the misinformation that we feel has been portrayed within the community. Lastly, there's been messages communicated by the mayor in public media and meetings that the Creekside Solar Project will remove an entire quarter section of prime farmland entirely out of use. This doesn't align with any of the information Voltairix has shared in any of our public communications. Similar statements have been made during our public open house with our most critical stakeholders at the EMRB Committee of the Whole in front of 13 municipalities and mayors of communities we're actively trying to develop projects with. And we can only assume in many of the private meetings she's had with individual residents. Again, I'm confused why these statements are being made, as Mayor DeBlanco has now participated in 3 different meetings with Voltairix dating back to June of last year on this project, all of which we have communicated that the project site area is just over 100 acres, approximately 40% less than the mayor stated, and have presented plans and our efforts to co-locate agricultural uses with the solar array as done in many other jurisdictions. Not once has the mayor mentioned our effort or desire to do this. To provide an update on our agricultural progress, to date, we've received 3 formal expressions of interest from agricultural producers to co-locate farming initiatives with the project. One of those came through young agrarians from a visible minority family who wants to grow food between rows of modules and represents the smallest and shrinking age demographic of under 35-year-olds as per Statistics Canada. As well, we have 2 sheep farmers who have provided expressions of interest who want to graze their livestock, and just recently received contact information from an adjacent neighbor for one of their family members who's also a sheep farmer and has interest in the property. We are currently in discussions with the Northern Quinoa Production Corporation and other local farmers to explore the feasibility of grain crops in between the 20 to 30 feet space between rows of solars. As stated in the Regional Agricultural Master Plan, a secure agricultural land base enables agricultural producers to make long-term investment decisions related to their operations. Currently, county residents who have made decisions to sell or lease their private land so that they can invest in other parts of their businesses are being challenged and degraded. RAMP further states land use policies must also be sufficiently flexible to reflect agriculture in all its diverse forms across the region. Restricting land use to preserve agricultural land with hopes of attracting new farmers or retaining existing ones goes against national and global trends, penalizes existing farm operators, county residents, by taking away the ability for agricultural producers to make their own long-term investment decisions. I'd like to leave you with another document which speaks to agricultural co-location in greater detail with regards to our project, and ask that this document be published in the meeting minutes as information. Given time sensitivity today, we need not review it now. However, you'll see in that document that cultivation between rows results in approximately 50% of the impacted site remaining as active farmland. And in the scenario where livestock grazing occurs between and under solar modules, less than 1,000 square feet of land is actually lost to power equipment, leaving 99% of the impacted property as grazing farmland. If you haven't had a chance to watch the public open house video from January 31st, which speaks to further benefits such as broadband opportunities that the project incentivizes, which Mayor DeBlanco has highlighted as a top 3 priority for Leduc County and one that she hopes private industry helps implement, and the 21,000% property tax increase in excess of $5 million of revenue the project will bring to Leduc County, who's lost significant revenues relating to the changes at the Genesee generating plant as a result of this exact global renewable energy transition we're providing Leduc County an opportunity to participate in. I highly encourage that you look at that open house video that's available on our website. For clarity and in closing, we're requesting 3 things. A copy of the documentation from the council meeting where the majority of councillors voted to oppose the project, a copy of the documentation from the council meeting where council authorized Mayor DeBlanco to speak on their behalf, and 3, council to discuss the necessity of another meeting with Voltairix and provide a date and agenda for an in-camera meeting if required. I don't need responses on these things today, but I would appreciate a written response to our questions by March 31st, trusting that 3.5 weeks is enough time. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Again, today was a presentation and administration does have the asks and will get back to council and I assume you with information within a timeline. Mr. Coleman, could I get you to weigh in on that, please?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, we will respond to the inquiries.
All right, thank you for your presentation today.
Mr. Chair, will we get a copy of the responses?
Well, I believe anything that's public from our manager would definitely be circulated to council.
We'll make copies available to.
All right, then noted. Again, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for your time.
We do have a public hearing starting in a few minutes, so we'll just wait until 1:15 before I.
Mr. Honesty's here. His item might go
Oh,
fairly
okay,
quickly.
sure.
If you want to.
If you think you can squeeze that in.
I do. Thank you. Thank you. We have a funding request for sponsorship from the Canadian Energy Museum. As council is very aware, this is an organization that we partner and support regularly. This committee, this presentation has been received and reviewed with our sponsorship committee. And the committee is recommending a contribution of $5,000 towards the 75th anniversary celebrations. The organizing group of Canadian Energy Museum continues to plan and define the details of their event, but we're closely aligned in partnership with them, including possible support of our recreation staff to attend the event as well as making sure that our elected officials are part of that day in addition to our funding contribution. Their actual request was for $7,500. But the recommendation of the committee is for a contribution of $5,000, which we have within our budget $15,000 for miscellaneous asks. And this would be the first, if supported by council, would be the first allocation of that $15,000. So our recommendation is to support the $5,000, and then we will continue to work with Canadian Energy Museum to ensure that we're properly recognized on that day.
All right, we have the ask before us with this discussion. Please go forward. Councillor Vandenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the museum has been a fixture in our community for some time. They are really the anchor point to our cultural and historical reason that we're here. Dating back to 47, I believe, and consequently the growth and the birth and the growth of Nisku in itself, leading towards the energy park and the international airport. So from my point of view, celebrating this museum is well within, I think, obviously it's what I choose to do as being a councillor, and I would support a motion to grant that funding.
So what I hear you saying, Councillor Vandenberg, that a sponsorship of $5,000 be provided to the Canadian Energy Museum to sponsor the 75th anniversary of Leduc number 1. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That would be correct.
All right, further discussion on that? Yes, Kelly Lynn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Although I wasn't around for the beginning of day one of the Leduc number 1, I recognize the significance that this operation has within Leduc County, and will happily support this today.
Okay, other comments? Larry, you look to be in agreement? Okay, and Ray? Okay, I'll be supporting it today. Actually, I do like some of the work that they've been doing over the last little while. There's some really good information coming out of there. Some self-sufficiency, and looking forward to I believe it's a June 18th date. And so there's lots of vendors, lots of stuff. Hopefully we can get our rec out there doing some stuff. So really look forward to it. We have a recommendation before us. I will call the vote on that. All in favor? That's unanimously approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to let everybody get settled in before I have a chance to call. We have 2 people coming into the gallery. All right, I'd like to call this public hearing to order at 1:16. My name is Deputy Mayor Rick Smith, and I will chair this public hearing. All questions and comments shall be directed through me. Could I have council members introduce themselves, please?
Councillor Kelly Lynn Lewis.
Councillor Kelly Vandenberg.
Councillor Larry Wanchuk. Councillor Ray Scobie.
And Deputy Mayor Rick Smith. Council is here to listen to the information presented and make a decision on the matter that is the subject of this hearing. Alternate advertising bylaw number 22-21. This is a formal hearing and it is not a debate. Everyone wishing to speak who has pre-registered will be given an opportunity to speak once to the matter as called upon by myself as chair. Each presenter must state his or her full name, rural address, and their interest in this matter, including whether they're in support or non-support. Individuals who does not identify themselves will not be given the opportunity to speak. Presenters are to stay within a 5-minute time limit on the presentation and are encouraged when speaking to keep the presentation to the point and refrain from restating points raised by previous speakers. If new presentation materials are provided, you may be required to email a copy to the legislative coordinator. I now call upon Renee Klamosko, General Manager, Corporate and Financial Services, to introduce the subject of the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So administration has a recommendation in front of council this afternoon to give second and third reading to the alternate advertising bylaw 22-21. So background on this project: at the December 14th, 2021 meeting, a report was presented to council to give first reading to the alternate advertising bylaw. The reasons for this bylaw is that administration aligns our communication practices with the methods required under the MGA for information specified within Section 606 of the Act. This has been made difficult by an overall reduction in newspaper distribution, particularly as a large rural municipality. Leduc County does not influence newspaper distribution in the county and therefore are unable to guarantee that current distribution levels will be maintained. The alternate advertising bylaw establishes the website as an authorized method of advertising to meet the legislated requirements under the Municipal Government Act. At this time, without this bylaw in place, that is not the case. The public hearing was originally scheduled for February 8th, but was deferred to today due to an omission in the original advertisements. 2 rounds of public participation campaigns were held. One was in January and one was in February, and the tactics that were used are outlined in the report that was provided to council. So in the public participation and what we heard, administration received the following input from the public. So 8 letters were received, 40 comments via the website and email, and 18 telephone inquiries. At the time of writing this report, we did receive 1 additional comment via email yesterday, so that would increase the amount to 41, and that was distributed to council yesterday via email. So in summary, the letters, there was 8 letters expressed concerns with the website being the only means of advertising for the county. For the summary of website and email comments, that the package was included. All the comments were in the council package. 9 responses were in support, while with counting the additional email that was received yesterday, 32 responses expressed concerns with the bylaw. Summary of the telephone conversations that I had with various residents: most expressed concerns that they do not have computers, internet, and/or cell phones to be able to access the information electronically, and that newspaper advertisements and letters are important means of communication. Once administration clarified that current processes would continue, their concerns were alleviated. 1 person at the time of our telephone conversation was considering registering to speak at the hearing. For the letters and comments that we received, we did provide a written response that is outlined in attachment H to the report. And at the time of writing this report, 2 individuals have registered to speak today. And also, just in addition, the summaries of the responses that we've received were the responses received by administration. And I know that council members also received direct inquiries and telephone conversations and emails and comments from the public. And those aren't counted within what I included in my report. However, in the emails that were sent to me, concerns were raised in those conversations and comments, with the website being the only means of communication with the public. So in response to the engagement, the things that we heard through the public participation campaign, I wanted to clarify a few points. So the intent of this proposed bylaw is to ensure that posting information to our website about county bylaws, resolutions, meetings, public hearings, and other things is recognized as an official method of notification under the Municipal Government Act. The alternate advertising bylaw does not apply to everything that Leduc County communicates to the public, including such things as development decisions, public participation opportunities, information about tax sales, property assessments, programs, and more. This bylaw only applies to the items specified under Section 606 of the Act, which includes information about bylaws, resolutions, council meetings, public hearings, and other things as defined by the MGA. Our obligation for notifications under Section 606 of the Municipal Government Act has always been met through advertisements in local papers and through mail delivery. This has been made increasingly difficult by the overall reduction in newspaper distribution in Leduc County. Our current process involves evaluating every notification to determine the most effective ways to communicate the information and or to collect input from the public. And currently, this includes at minimum placing advertisements for 2 weeks in the Leduc Representative and posting the information in multiple places on our website. So we do not intend to change our current approach. We want to reach as many people as possible. We believe by adding the website as an authorized method, in addition to the two other methods provided for in the MGA, that this will allow us to access and provide the information to more individuals. We also recognize that people don't visit the website regularly to search for new information, and that is why there is some functionality within the website that people can register to receive information on public participation, as well as notifications when notices are posted on the website. So that is the report that I have for council, and I'll answer any questions that council has.
Thank you for that. Council members, any questions for clarification on the subject of the hearing today? Yes, Councillor Vandenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. I think it does summarize what I've been getting, and I got a lot of response, and I encouraged everyone that I spoke to submit, and I see that a lot of them are there. There was a little bit of misunderstanding as to what the county was trying to do. I think that has been cleared up. So in essence, what I'm hearing is that everything remains the same status quo, but we will add the website component to that. And because for some people, it's a learning thing. And I appreciate opening up the first page of the Leduc County and get the option of opting in on information pieces that automatically come into my email address. So that's just sort of a feature of being able to use the website. So I
remember, Councillor Vandenberg, some of this will be in debate as well, whether you're for or
it's
against
the
it today.
question period now, isn't it?
Right now, we're just, we're
Yes,
looking
my
for clarity.
apologies.
No, it's okay. There was a clarification.
No other questions. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much. I had a question from a resident asking if the communication method will not be changing, why does the bylaw not clearly reflect what the process will be?
So the intent of this bylaw is not to outline the exact process that administration follows. It ultimately is, the purpose for this bylaw is to recognize the website as an authorized means. We already, through the Municipal Government Act, that legislates currently that advertisements must be made through letters or through newspaper publications. So this is to add another authorized method that's recognized under the Municipal Government Act, not to outline detailed processes that administration follows on various matters under the MGA.
Right, any further questions? I'd like to call upon the county manager, Mr. Coleman, to read any relevant correspondences that have been received that are not part of the agenda package.
Nothing additional has been received, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, so we will move into our presentations, supporters and opponents today. I'd like to call upon the first speakers. Karen and Kevin Nielsen, would you like to come up separately or would you like to come up together?
We do everything separate.
Okay, then I suggest one of you show up at the table and make your presentation. Again, you do have the option of both sitting, but one at a time is fine as well. Sorry, just a reminder that you do have timed 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Yeah, I kind of like to talk sometimes. So my name's Karen Nielsen. I live at 50351 Range Road 225, Leduc County. From personal experience, we've been affected by the way the county has, sorry, it's emotional, how we've been notified in the past about developments coming into our community. And from personal experience, we found that the way the county has notified adjacent landowners or landowners in the area has been ineffective. Sorry. I think adding the website is a good feature. I like the feature of the ability to sign up for email preferences. I also think that's good, but at the end of the day, it's almost unrealistic for the county to expect people every week or bi-weekly to go onto the county website to find out what matters are of importance to landowners in the community. Also, again, like you say, there's a lot of seniors in our area that don't have access to the internet. There are a lot of people that aren't savvy in social media, like the Facebook pages, things like that. So for them, it's hard to find out where they can gain information about relevant changes in land use and other notifications that are important to landowners in the area. From our experience, the Leduc rep was a complete failure because it doesn't circulate in our area. We didn't even know that it existed until we had to ask some neighbors what the Leduc rep was. And they confirmed that one of the boxes that the paper was kept in caught on fire several years ago and never was replaced. And then that newspaper didn't circulate in our area. So we had never seen it. We never even heard about it. And that was one of the sources of information where a change in a land use bylaw basically was advertised. We didn't see it. We didn't have the ability to participate in a council meeting for, whether or not we agreed with it or not. And as a result, our lives have been impacted by that development. Also, the 2-week minimum sometimes is difficult for people to, when they're notified of any changes of what's happening in our community. Doesn't give a lot of people a lot of time. There's a lot of people that work out of town. There's a lot of people that are shift work. And sometimes trying to respond within the 2 weeks can be difficult for landowners to be able to get their opinions on to whether or not something matters to them or not. I'm not sure how much time I have left. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I guess the one thing that I request, or some of the other things that we were thinking of is that, there's billboards, those portable billboards sometimes in the community on major routes within our county are helpful for people that are driving by and driving, into Beaumont, into Leduc. They can see when there's something happening in our community, and then we can take those steps to go to the website or check in a paper to see if it's something that we need to participate in. The other comment I had is that the county needs to take off kind of their business or administration hats with each notification that is presented to the county, and put themselves into the place of people or residents who may live in the area And any changes to any type of land use bylaws or anything else in the community that are going to affect residents who actually live here. If you step back and say, you know, is that RV park, it may sound innocent, or a storage facility may sound innocent on paper, but if you take the approach where if I have to live next door to that or across the road from that, how is it going to impact me? Maybe it's not going to be noisy, but you're going to get trucks and trailers constantly. You're going to get strangers in our community constantly. There's noise and there's dust and there's traffic. So
I'm sorry, just a reminder, there's
sorry.
30 seconds
Yeah.
left.
So I think in certain situations where if you put yourselves in the residents or the homeowner's seat, and if it's going to create a significant impact or even a minimal impact on someone's quality of life or their lifestyle, I think letters by mail is one way that we know someone for sure is going to know that something's happening across the road from them, and they're going to get the opportunity to be able to provide that input.
Thank you for that. Again, any clarifying questions from council members to the speaker? Seeing none, thank you.
There was a letter from Michelle Mitchell. She couldn't get in. Can I leave that with somebody?
Ms. Klamosko, that's appropriate.
If it's okay.
Thank you. All right, we have our second registered speaker, Kevin Nielsen.
Good afternoon, council. My name is Kevin Nielsen, same address. We don't do everything separately. I'd like to make a few comments. It's a little bit disorganized and I hope not repetitive. I want to just at the beginning emphasize how important this is. I think council understands, but I really want council members to understand how important it is from our perspective that this part of the function of council and administration gets done right. As Karen said, we've had personal experience and I'm not going to dwell on that right now, but it has, we didn't have an opportunity to attend a public hearing like this because we didn't know about it until well after the fact because of inadequate advertising. And it has, I don't want to sound melodramatic, but it's ruined our lives. And I won't go into a lot of detail. Anybody who wants to talk to us can. Rick Smith has unfortunately heard ad nauseum. So has Dwayne. But it's really important that that advertisement be done adequately and appropriately and as inclusively as possible. It's the only way that you can reliably get information and feedback from the residents. It's the only way that there can be uniform or consistent public input into the framework and the structure of what you do as council. I think that you guys are from everything that I've seen and heard getting a consistent message that one method is not adequate. One of the concerns that I have is that adding this using 606.1 of the Municipal Government Act would enable people who aren't as conscientious as they could or should be to rely on a single method. We've experienced that in the past as well, and that's part of our concern regarding this. If this becomes an official method under the MGA, then somebody who is not as conscientious or has ill intent or whatever may just use a single method and it could be considered legal. So I think I haven't read the latest revision of the bylaw, but I think if not in process, it should possibly be a part of the bylaw itself that multiple methods be used for the time being to advertise so that this isn't so person dependent. I understand that there's a lot of hesitation or reservation in sending letters. because of cost and the logistics. The reality is you've heard people say that the website isn't adequate by itself. It's improved a lot. And I have to give kudos to the people who have worked on making the website more effective as a method of advertisement, but it's not good enough yet. And I think at the end of the day, as Karen said, letters that get sent out get into people's mailboxes, and despite the cost, it's still probably the most effective way to ensure that people at least have an opportunity. I would
just a reminder, 1 minute left.
I would suggest that council considers a couple of things. First of all, I think that there needs to be adjuncts to the advertising. The adjacent landowner letters are an important part of the whole process, but they don't go out to enough people. I would suggest that the time frame needs to be expanded for responses to things that are advertised, because it just isn't enough time. We received a letter today that has a response deadline of the 17th of March. And it's only going to a few people whose land abuts the proposed development. And I'm not sure how that fits into the advertising bylaw.
All right, I'll just get you to wrap up with final comments.
That I could go on forever. I'm not going to do that. I think that you've got the thrust of what Karen's and my concerns are, and Rick can echo, and Dwayne can echo and fill in a lot of the blanks if there's any questions.
All right,
and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Okay, before you leave, any questions from council members for the presenter? All right, thank you for your presentation today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Is there anyone else in the gallery that would like to speak on behalf of the issue today? Yes, Dwayne?
Mr. Chairman, before you close the hearing, we should probably read that letter into record that was submitted by.
Okay, we will do that. Ms. Klamosko?
So we do have a letter here from Michelle Mitchell, 50319 Range Road 225, Leduc County, to whom it may concern. As a resident of this county, I don't feel that this is my sole responsibility to have to look through the Leduc County website daily or even weekly to predict the quality of life in my community. The county, who is aware of such requests, needs to take some responsibility to ensure that its residents become aware, can have the opportunity to respond, especially when it impacts our quality of life. Any request for changes in bylaws, notifications, etc., that is going to have any type of impact on my quality of life, my lands, my livestock, should be presented to me by mail or email if requested, in addition to the county's website. Newspapers such as The Rep are not available to me, and many of the papers that I get in the mail, such as the Chronicle, I do not go through as time does not permit. I am a senior and fortunate to have internet access, but many seniors in our area do not. It is an unfair assumption to make that these residents will be able to get a computer weekly to see what changes are happening that will affect their quality of life. Letters will at least get to these residents. It should be noted that even though I have internet access and a computer, I am not a computer savvy person, and finding information that I need is not always successful. Having billboards on the lands that are requesting changes in land use, etc., and on major roadways may help those in our community that are driving by. This will allow us to see that something that requires public participation and will affect us as a community is available for us to respond to. We can then go to the website for further information. Providing mailed letters to properties in a 2 to 5 kilometer radius that will be affected by any proposed changes to land use, notifications that affect owners in the general area, will at least give those that live in the area a chance to provide input. The county has no problem sending out letters to let us know that they want to make changes in how residents are informed of changes, in how they advertise property taxes, etc. When someone has requested to have a change in the land use bylaws, etc., that will affect our quality of life, no matter how significant. Why can't the county take the time and pay the minimal cost to send us a letter? The job of the county is to inform the public of changes that are being requested or are happening in our community, not for the people who live here to have to take hours out of their day to figure out what will have a negative on our quality of life, to not miss out on having input on a certain business project that is happening right next door. I don't want to find out that there's going to be a new development next door that is going to impact my lifestyle via development permit, such as a wedding and event center in my area that has had an impact on me and my livestock, when I should have been notified directly as an adjacent landowner of there being a request for a change in the land use bylaw. Even those not adjacent should have been notified by mail, as they too are affected. It is too late at the development permit stage, and when it is a business that does not belong in our area, we as residents must pay the price. The county needs to pay the price of a few stamps to ensure that its residents are appropriately informed of such potential changes. That's what the county gets paid to do: inform, notify its residents. Word of mouth is a powerful thing in our community, especially when something is proposed in our area or county that is averse to our way of living. By informing surrounding homeowners by mail within a certain radius of potential changes in bylaws that will ultimately result in a business that is not desirable or consistent with our rural life, people talk to others in the community, and those several miles away may hear from word of mouth and be able to submit concerns. Not providing this information to those directly affected seems to imply that the county doesn't want to listen to the public's input and would rather avoid any potential conflict. The county needs to step back and take a look at all notifications, requests for bylaw changes, and say to themselves, would I want to know that this change is being requested and be able to have input on how this is going to affect my way of life? If the answer is yes, then make the effort to ensure that we are notified in a manner that will reach us.
Thank you for that. And do you have any final comments, Ms. Klamosko, before I close the hearing?
No final comments, thank you.
Any clarification questions from council members? Seeing none, I will conclude this public hearing at 1:43. All right, now it is chance for debate. Council will discuss comments made by the public and render a decision on the alternate advertising bylaw. So comments, let's enter into debate now on what's before us today. Go ahead, Councilor Vandenberg.
Question is around process. We're being asked to give a second or third reading to the bylaw 22-21. Based on some of the conversation raised today are points. So at what point do we discuss the points raised today that they may in fact be considered in the bylaw before its passing? Just a question on protocol.
So that time is now during your debate. If there's elements or things that you don't like about the bylaw or you want considered changed in the bylaw, then now's the time to discuss it. I mean, council doesn't have to give second and third reading. You can defeat second, third reading of the bylaw, and the bylaw dies. But
thank you, Mr. Coleman.
And follow up, go ahead.
Continue. So essentially what I'm hearing today that resonated with me is number one, the letters are important and they must remain important. There's a question on distribution, the radius distribution on the letters, and how effective that may or may not be to expand that area of radius. That I don't know that we've actually covered that, and I would be happy to hear that we have or haven't. Essentially, the newspaper coverage as well is a preferred method, but we all know that the newspaper doesn't go out to everybody in the area. There's not much we can do about that, but it's important to note that it's important to some people, and it will remain the same. I think is better. The other thing I heard in terms of expanding the boundary of the letter circulation is increase in time response. I guess from a personal level, when I do get a letter, I look at it two ways. It either affects me, and I put it over here to deal with, or it doesn't, and I put it over there not to deal with. The date is important. The longer the date, in my experience, the less likely I'm encouraged to deal with it. I wonder about increasing the timeline that is really effective.
All right, you have several questions. You want those addressed right now?
Yeah, if there's anything that we can discuss here right now on those particular points. So on the last point is the billboard methodology. We have used that. And I'm not really clear why and when we use it and when we don't.
All right, so specifically, let's deal with some of the questions and get some answers if we can. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so there's lots of different points being raised here. So one, I would say that when there's advertising requirements, when we look at doing public participation, we look at the matter that is at hand and to determine appropriate tactics to be able to reach the appropriate target audience to what is being proposed or being considered. So within this bylaw itself, it's really not around perhaps all of the various processes within the planning and development function, but rather it's being focused on the areas within the specific section of the 606 within the Municipal Government Act when it speaks specifically about those 6 areas. So really specifically around the bylaws, resolutions, council meetings, public hearings, and other things, and is not intended to outline the process for every different type of matter that comes before planning and development. We have, through the work that was done for this bylaw, we also are looking at our administrative processes in terms of various notification that's required through development processes. So we do have outlined some various processes that, development permit applications, land use bylaw amendment applications, area structure plans, outline plans, all of these different matters are addressed in different ways. So it's a difficult question to answer that in every instance of every matter that's in front or being considered or being taken care of by administration, that the same process is followed, because that is not the process that is done at this point in time. So that really the purpose of this alternate advertising bylaw is really to recognize the website as an authorized means of advertising, but in no means are we looking for that to be the only source of notification to the public. Now, we have just started the question around billboards. We have used the billboards when we've done the transportation master plan. So that is a method, a tactic that we have in our communication ability to use that as a tactic for certain communication items. But it's not necessarily the best tactic for every item. So that's, we look at things through a communication lens to determine what tactics would be appropriate to do for the various matters. So it is more unique to different scenarios.
All right, so for clarification, today we're looking at the alternate advertisement bylaw to allow us to use the website as a approved site. We received a lot of letters, a lot of input of what we should be continuing to do, what we may want to consider starting. Is there a method or some way you can come back to council and council can maybe summarize some of the concerns we had and maybe show council within a policy how going forward? Go ahead, Mr. Coleman.
So we are working on our notification processes in planning and reviewing that. We have started to use billboards and things of that nature. Just to be clear, there's really two issues here. One is about notification process, and one is about requirements to advertise a bylaw or a resolution or things as identified. Notification is not advertising. So we can't use mailings or billboards when something's legally required to be advertised. We have to use the paper. And if, as many have mentioned, the paper that we use doesn't work, fails, then we need an alternative advertising mechanism, and that's our website. We'll continue to use the local paper, but many people have indicated to us they don't receive it, they don't get it. So that meets the legislative legal side of things. Some of the questions that Councillor Vandenberg has asked about is really about that notification process around our planning cycle that we are looking at and looking at ways of doing that differently. But you can't advertise a bylaw through a letter. That the legislation is very clear. You must advertise in a local paper of circulation, and there's a time period. It also gives you the option to use an alternative method. That's really what this is about today. I would equate it to it's an insurance policy.
Okay.
That we meet our legal minimum requirement. The other elements, and they're great pieces of concern and feedback that we're getting, speaks to that whole planning cycle of how do we notify people? It's important, as many of the concerns have been raised, about these things affect their lives.
Yeah.
And so we have to find better ways to inform people about how developments or things that are happening in their backyard affects their lives so that they can participate in the process of giving us feedback.
So thank you for that. Today, what you're saying is we're actually giving second and third reading to the alternate advertising bylaw. We've heard what our residents have said, and administration is working on bringing back different methods within planning and development to council. So today we're dealing with the issue of an insurance plan, an alternate way of advertising to the papers, which some of us still love, but they don't seem to be continuing to grow. If anything, they're shrinking. So thank you for that clarification. I think that's really important. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor. I'll take Councillor Lewis first. Sorry about. Go ahead.
Thank you. This council and the previous council, which happens to be all of us as well, we pushed administration to ensure that our public and our residents know what's going on for better communication processes, such as upgrading the website to where it is today, which is huge from where it was 5 years ago. The last thing we want to do is not include our residents in the information that's going out. So what I've heard and what I've been reassured and read in all the letters is there's concerns, but administration does not plan to change its current approach with how they send information out. And if they do, we will hear about it and we'll be on them. So I would support first or second reading today, sir.
All right, I do have a recommendation of second reading before us. Further comments before I call the question? Yes, Councillor Vandenberg.
So it was important to hear from people, their perception and what their understanding was. And that's what we got today. And I thank you for that. Ms. Klamosko did a fine job of taking my questions on behalf of those in front of us today. And Mr. Coleman did a great job of breaking it down to really why we're here and we're talking about it. Just wanted to make one point that Ms. Klamosko, and I apologize for throwing a bunch of stuff at you. But one of them was the radius of the letters when that's appropriate to take that into consideration. We have heard about that in the past. I've had people in my area say, you know, how is it that I missed this? And it really does impact me. So we've heard that in the past. So I just wanted to thank our administration for responding the way they have. And I would be supporting the bylaw second reading today.
All right, Mr. Coleman does have some comments on that.
Just to close out on Councillor Vandenberg's piece, because I think it's a very important piece. That's part of the policy review that I think I don't believe we do adequate notification. We've consistently heard that in my time here. We've consistently heard we don't do a good job with that radius piece. And I think we need to define it clearly that council says these are our expectations as a council for what the people want and expect. And we can define that through policy. It's a very good point, Councillor Vandenberg. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I do have a motion on the floor of second reading. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. And today we're looking for a third reading. Ray, would you be interested in moving that?
Yeah, with the thoughts that the planning is still working on our policies to do with this, and that it's cleared this up, that this is strictly an addition of a method to the system that we are going to work on improving. Yes, I would move third reading.
And again, I have to agree, the letters that came in, many of them had the same theme. And again, I spoke to many of the councils around the table, and some of the input was definitely around that. And again, it was good today that I think we broke down what we're dealing with the alternate advertising bylaw, but then also coming back and addressing a lot of the concerns that our residents has told us. So admin will be bringing things back for improvement. Mr. Coleman has suggested that we need to improve, we continue to improve, but we will get better under the recommendations of that. So I do have third reading before us. I'm going to call that question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And we're concluded. Okay, I'm going to I have a 2 o'clock coming. I'm going to just take a recess for 4 minutes and let the next presentation set up. -025, SD 17-026, and SD 16-048, Irvine Creek. Charlene, are you taking that file?
Yes.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, councillors, and good afternoon. Planning and Development are bringing forth a subdivision validity period extension for consideration for council this afternoon. I have combined the extension to cover 3 files within the subdivision, as they all pertain to each other, and they do encompass the same area of land. Just in background, on June 19th, 2017, the subdivision authority conditionally approved subdivision SD 1725. That is the subdivision of the photo on the bottom left corner. It is just a boundary adjustment, adjusting the property lines from running diagonal to putting the jot in to align with the subdivisions corresponding to the north and the south on the lands. On August 15th, 2017, the subdivision authority conditionally approved a subdivision application 1726, which subdivided the lands into 5 stages with a total of approximately 114 lots. That one on the photo is the top left. And in August 15th, 2017, the subdivision authority conditionally approved SD 1648, which was to subdivide 43 lots, and that is the top right. In order to develop the above lands, these subdivisions do encompass, when you look at the bottom left corner, they are owned by 2 separate developers, and they have always been owned by 2 separate developers at the time that the subdivisions were proposed for consideration. Each party did sign off allowing each one to subdivide. There was an Irvine Creek outline plan that was adopted by council that did oversee the above lands, which showed the infrastructure and residential pattern that's in place. The titles of the subject parcel have since changed. They are currently under transfer of new ownership, and the development plan is for 2022 construction phase for phases 1 of 3 for the top left corner. However, with that said, each subdivision is dependent on each other. The public utility lot is in the bottom of the lands, which does serve the subdivision to the north. And of course, the boundary adjustment serves both subdivisions. So in order to give a subdivision approval extension, we would be asking that we give all 3 the extension in order to make the subdivision work for them. Just to give a little bit of history for council, wondered who the new ownership was. The county did provide us a copy of the paper trails with respect to the status of the proposed ownership. Land titles, as we know, is well beyond 6 to 8 weeks registering right now. So we do not have actual documentation yet from land titles. However, we do have the paperwork that shows the lands are in transition. The new developers are both new to Leduc County. They have not developed before with the county. New developers are identified as Irwin Creek Development Limited. They are formed with 2 shareholders, Gilco Holdings Limited and ANV Investments. I'm not going to read their history for you. You can see that in the report, but I did want to give you a little bit of an idea that they have done developing in the region. And this is not their first time development by all means. As well as the south parcel of the lands, they have been acquired by 2 Edmonton-based developers called MLC and Milestone Builders. And once again, I've listed a few of their projects as well, for you can see that they are not first-time developers to the region either. But like I said, they are to Leduc County. So Leduc County's practice, of course, is that the director or the manager may give a subdivision validity extension to a first-time subdivision 1-year period, up to even an additional 2-year period from the date of approval. These original decisions, of course, are well beyond the 2-year period. That's why they're in front of council today for consideration. Leduc County's practice, of course, is that council does not approve extensions, requests that are beyond the 1-year period, unless there's the following circumstances. One being that we find that there has been substantial movement in the negotiation or execution of a development agreement. In this particular case, administration are satisfied that the applicants have been actively working to satisfy each condition of approval. The change of ownership, however, has caused a significant delay in completing these subdivision approvals. However, there have been no substantive changes to the East Vistas local area structure plan, the Irvine Creek outline plan, or any Leduc County statutory plan that would impede these approvals. Administration recognized that the lands are under new ownership transfer and that they have submitted substantial information already to engineering for review and are ready to execute a new development agreement. For these reasons, our administration are recommending that council approve the subdivision validity periods to March 8th, 2023. Thank you.
All right, let's open up debate. Comments, questions from council? Well, I'll certainly jump in. Again, I think over the last couple of years, there's been a challenge all over for people to actually get going, get moving. And it's nice to see something is back here. There's a proposal. There seems to be a lot of action going on. So again, looking at each, I guess, circumstance, each request for extension as we go through, not only on today, but the others. I would like to see these owners, developers given a chance to show what they can do over the next 1 year. Into that extension. What a great place for development, and hopefully it gets kickstarted and moving. So I would be prepared to move that recommendation today that Leduc County approve the request to extend the subdivision validity periods of SD 17-025, SD 17-026, and SD 16-048 for a 1-year period till March 8th, 2023. Further debate or comments? Yes, Councillor Vandenberg.
Well, I'm satisfied that administration is satisfied. That's important. The 1-year extension is part of the recommendation. I'm hoping that the developer has a choice between 1 year and 2 year, I believe is what I heard you say, for an extension. Could you clarify that, please?
No, through the chair, it's always a 1-year period that you're allowed to provide through the Municipal Government Act. The 2-year period just comes into play that administration are allowed to give 2 extensions over a 2-year period.
Thank you. And then the delay in the registries it's a timeline event. It's not of a high concern for you as well. This fits very nicely. New ownership, new investor into the area. Leduc County has a high reputation of being very formidable and easy to do business with. And we know that the activity along 510 is a subject that we've all been talking about, the investments into those areas for the infrastructure. I welcome this group.
Okay, Councillor Lewis, comments?
Thank you, Ms. Haverland. You were able to answer all the questions that I was going to ask you, so I have no questions. Thank you.
That's good. Go ahead.
Through the chair, I just would like to say that the new developers are here. So they do actually just want to stand up and be recognized and just put a face for who they are. They can do that, introduce themselves.
Brenda from Urban Creek Development. I'm one of the partners from the A&B investment side, and Sean Gill and Roger Gill are the second partners from the Gilco side.
Okay.
And we are really thankful for council giving us an opportunity to work with the company. We're looking forward to doing our work in this.
Thank you for that. That is a really beautiful spot, actually, to put homes into. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's there within a year's time. Again, we have a recommendation before us to extend this for 1 year. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous and carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next item. I believe it is 6A2. Yes, business retention expansion. Is that where we're at?
Control development.
Direct control. Sorry, I should have printed off my agenda page. I still have it here. Okay, let's move into 6.2, which is the development permit application for D21-344 agricultural land improvement direct control. Proceed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Council, members and attendees. This is a development permit application for a direct control, D21-344. So the proposed development permit application is for natural resource extraction and agriculture land improvement. The natural resource extraction is to harvest approximately 175,000 cubic meter of dirt, clay from the direct zone area. The total parcel size is 155.39 acres, while the DC area is 35 acres. So this slide shows just the location of the parcel in the context of Leduc County. And the legal address is Southeast Section 27, Township 49, Range 424 west of the 4th Meridian. This slide shows the location of the parcel and the surrounding lands. It's close to 814 and Highway 623 and east of the Saunders Lake. This aerial photo shows the location of the property and the development on the property. These site photos taken from the previous slope stability report, which the applicant submitted last time for their permit. And I just want to add these photos to show the topography of the land. The application was referred to a wide area as we were discussing this afternoon about the notification. So this is something which we thought that it might impact a lot of people. So we increased our referral area and sent it to a lot of neighbors. So the land use district, you can see the purple area. That's the area where this extraction will take place. The biggest polygon, which is 35 acres. The rest is zone agriculture, and the smallest portion was previously they carried out extraction over there. There's the development permit application form which was submitted to Leduc County. This is the site plan. So they submitted the site plan. If you look at the dotted line, the yellow dotted line, that shows the extent of the project boundary. And there is a with this there is a 50-meter buffer between the, if you see the hashed area on the south side, this is a 50-meter buffer between the coulee and the parcel where the development will take place. The applicant also submitted a sediment control erosion plan and silt fencing, and other measures will be taken during extraction activities. So before I go to that, I just want to give you a background. So the subject lands, as I mentioned, are located close to 623 and Highway 814. The parcel is 4 kilometers east of the city of Leduc. Existing developments on the land are 3 dwellings and multiple farm buildings. In 2019, council passed bylaw 1619, rezoned 3.21 acres of land from agriculture to DC, and then a permit was issued for 30,000 cubic meter of extraction. And that was completed, and they brought this land back to agriculture. The current application is to extract approximately 175,000 cubic meter of dirt. And the basic idea is to harvest the dirt and to bring this land for agriculture development. So the land use bylaw, that's why this permit in front of the council, because it was in direct control, and according to MGA, direct control permit applications have to be approved by the council. This is the bylaw which the council approved last year in November 2021, and this bylaw rezoned the agriculture area for clay extraction from agriculture to DC. So this application is aligned with this bylaw. This is some policy regarding metropolitan growth plan. So in the rural areas, opportunities to redesignate prime agriculture lands for agriculture use will be encouraged. Basically, this application is aligned with the EMRB, and EMRB is basically asking for like protecting prime agriculture land and protecting agriculture operations. Similarly, MDP policy. So this application is also aligned with the MDP. The subject parcel is located in North Central area, Area B, which is basically for extensive field crops and limited other uses. Natural resource extraction, MDP give us some direction on natural resource extraction. The policies are that we have to look to minimize the conflict of resource extraction with neighboring land uses, timely and appropriate reclamation, assist natural resource sector and provincial agencies. We have to do agriculture impact assessment and mitigate any potential negative impacts. The application, as I mentioned previously, that it was circulated to a wider area. We received only one comment from a landowner, which is living around 800 meters away from the subject site. And these were the concerns this landowner raised. That clay extraction was already considered once. Why is it being considered again? And the answer is that before it was on a smaller parcel, now they are proposing on a bigger parcel. Increase in heavy traffic will destroy recently surfaced 814 and Highway 623 intersection. The applicant has already obtained a roadside development permit from Alberta Transportation, and this is a provincial jurisdiction, not within Leduc County. We also received comments from internal and external departments. Agriculture Services is supporting the application. Leduc County Engineering is supporting the application. We got one comment from Alberta Culture and Status of Women Ministry that the property has a historical resource value of 5A and 5P. The applicant must obtain Historical Resource Act approval prior to proceeding with any land surface disturbance. And as I mentioned, the applicant has a valid Alberta transportation permit. And this is the development will take place within 35 acres. The lands are basically class 2, prime agriculture land, has steep slopes and inadequate heat units. We did the agriculture impact assessment. The score turned out 30, which means that this proposal is aligned with the MDP policies. Agriculture is supporting the application, and this project will result in additional lands for agriculture. We put some conditions, and these are the conditions of approval. Basically, one of the condition is that we are giving them a permit for recommending that council approve them for 2 years. And we hope that they will complete these extraction activities within 2 years. So these are the conditions which are also written in the report. So if you have any question.
Could I get you to read all those recommendations into the record, please? They are part of the recommendation before us today, but again, because we're live streaming,
okay,
and these may not be, could I get you to read those 9 conditions into the record?
Yeah, so like we look into this entire thing, and we think that we summarize that this proposed development shall be approved with the conditionally approved because it is aligned with the regional plan MDP and the county land use bylaw. So these are the conditions. Approval is granted based on the information provided by the applicant for approved development only and no other development. The approved development shall be located as shown on the attached approved site plan. CO2 project number 21002 dated March 5th, 2021 and prepared by Deculta Consulting Limited. This permit is approved for a period of 2 years on or before 2 years from the date of issuance of this development permit. All extraction, haul, and reclamation activities shall be completed unless a new development permit allowing for an extension of these activities is issued. The site shall be maintained in a neat and orderly manner, including the containment of all construction materials and refuse to the satisfaction of the DA. Hours of operation for extraction activities shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. No activity is permitted on Sunday or statutory holidays. During extraction activities, the site shall be monitored for establishment of noxious and prohibited noxious weeds as per Alberta Weed Control Act and regulations. If weeds are present, they must be controlled or destroyed accordingly. During extraction activities, the site shall be monitored for establishment of noxious and prohibited noxious weeds as per Alberta Weed Control Act and regulation. If weeds are present, they must be controlled or destroyed accordingly. Site remediation and restoration to agricultural land shall be carried out immediately following the completion of excavation activities, including the seeding of the area to grass to prevent erosion from occurring. All loads of materials being transported shall be tarred appropriately to ensure that material is not spread unintentionally. Infilling and site grading shall not be permitted to impede or interfere with the natural flow of surface water onto adjacent land or public ditches. No use or operation shall cause or create any significant impact or nuisance during normal operations, which in the opinion of the DA may be objectionable beyond the boundary of the site, which contains it by way of, but not limited to the following: odorous and toxic matter, water quality deterioration, dust, fly ash or particulate matter, groundwater quality or quantity deterioration, noise, glare. The landowner shall comply with all applicable federal and provincial laws and obtain any additional approvals as and where required for the operation of the approved development. The applicant landowner shall provide firefighting access at all times to the satisfaction of Leduc County Fire Services. No further development, expansion, or change in use is permitted unless approved by Leduc County.
Thank you for that. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Haberlin.
Just through the chair, just one correction.
Yeah.
Number 7 on the board, I believe 6 and 7 were repeated as the same condition, and just that number 7 is actually the applicant landowner shall submit a reclamation plan upon completion of the excavation activities. The plan shall encompass all disturbed areas and shall include reclamation methods, grading, contouring site, drainage, water quality, replacing overburden and topsoil, and potential agricultural use. And I just wanted to add further that with this permit, it is new for us in development that we do add the time period to these permits. And it is important to have that 2-year period where in the past we did not have time for applicants to complete these. So they were wide open. And now we do have that 2-year placement in place to conclude a project in a certain time period. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for that. And also, I know the applicants have been before us before for approvals and have extracted clay in that area without a lot of complaints that I'm not aware of, but we can have that in discussion. All right, thank you for that presentation. Just so you know, the package that we have was correct. The error was on the board. So thank you for reading that in and just correcting it for people that are listening in. Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
For clarity, if you can go back to the photo, can you confirm the egress exit points from this project, please? So because you have Roadview Road and you have 623 and 814, how is the traffic going to be entering off and on the property?
Through the chair, so the traffic would be entering from 814 because that's the main entrance access, and it is, as I mentioned, within the jurisdiction of Alberta Transportation. So if you if we can zoom this in, you will see that the road is just leading towards the west when someone is entering from 814, and it leads up to the project area.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify. The second thing is, have we had any infractions or complaints resulting from the last application?
Through the chair, not to my knowledge. If someone, other planning officers would have, but not, I have never heard any complaints about this.
All right, and I know the same. I have Councillor Lewis first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one of the comments from the landowners that had written a letter of concern was they didn't see how this was agricultural activity or how it would improve farmland. Can you comment on that, please?
So the thing is that we have agriculture experts in Leduc County, and we send it to them. The topography of the land, the land is like very good class 2 soils. The issue is that there is a bit of slope, and the intent is to, of course, to harvest the clay, but to make it more like flat ground for crops and agriculture operations. So currently, as I understand that it is not like under production. And when they complete this project, more land will be available for agriculture operations.
Yes, follow up.
Just to follow up, so will the applicant be stripping the good soil, removing the clay and putting the soil back?
That's true.
Thank you.
I have a comment on the last one. You said it's already been returned to agriculture. Is it still zoned as direct control, and does that need to be turned back to ag at some point?
Through the chair, the thing is that this should, like in my opinion, if it is DC, then it should, if it is completed, then it should go back to agricultural zoning so that they can carry out. Right now, I'm not sure that it still shows on our GIS as a direct control.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, I can add that as well. There's always a requirement that we would want anything that goes to direct control back to agricultural. However, anytime we do the land use bylaw update, is an opportunity for administration to go through all the properties within Leduc County and see if they are still being utilized for the purpose that was intended. And at such time, we can propose amendment to back any of the parcels back into their original state of agricultural. And we will catch those at that time as well.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Vandenberg.
I don't know how many times I've seen this, but in terms of the property has historical resource value of 5A and 5P, what does that mean?
Through the chair, the 5A is archaeological and the other one is paleontological. Those are the, under the Historical Resource Act, those are the designations, and any, I have seen personally that any lands close to the water, usually they have those designations, and they, under the provincial legislation, they require an approval. So each time, let's say they need an approval, and if they come across some archaeological material, then they have to notify the departments. That's the intent.
So I may
Follow up,
further
yep.
to that, and I hear about these things, but does that, like I guess in the movies, it gets all shut down and you can't do anything more until somebody comes out and does an investigation. How is it that the landowner is encouraged or the contractor is encouraged to report such a find?
The thing is that when we say that you have to follow the provincial legislation, usually the planning department with their conversations with the applicant bring those issues to their attention, that these are like, our permit is not just a free that he can go again and start working on the site. If it is a Water Act approval is required or a Historical Resource Act approval is required, then they have to follow those requirements before they start their project.
Okay, but I don't think, so in the course of excavating, they come across an arrowhead or a brontosaurus skeleton. What happens next? Is that what this applies to?
So my understanding is each time if there is something which is having historical significance, that's what the intent is, that you have to demarcate the area and you have to notify the relevant provincial departments, which in this case is Alberta Culture.
Okay, so what's the incentive to do so as opposed to just keep digging?
So through the chair, the thing is that this is a provincial legislation, and if someone is not following the provincial legislation, then of course they are in non-compliance to the provincial legislation, and that's what the intent is. So I don't know that with the provincial permit application for Historical Resource Act, what kind of information they will require. I cannot say from my own, like this is a separate process which we have communicated to the landowner and applicant.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking these questions is to make it very clear and in public that there is a requirement to monitor what you're digging and that there is a protocol in place. You stop short of us issuing a stop order if that was disregarded, but thinking that there being a provincial legislation, there is more than a slap on the wrist.
Do you want me to answer that?
So the stop order, like I again will say that stop order give us rights to issue under the MGA. And stop order would be basically if infractions of the conditions are in place. I don't know what kind of penalties one can have under the provincial jurisdiction, because those are totally different legislation and they have their own procedures. If they don't follow, if there are any breach of our conditions, then we have the right to issue a stop order.
Well, I think that's pointed out in condition 12, the land owner should comply with all applicable federal and provincial laws and obtain any additional approvals as and where required for the operations of the approved. So again, it would be the onus on that developer to follow federal and provincial laws. Go ahead, Ms. Chatelain.
Yes, and through the chair, as in addition, as we have referral comments and we do send it out as referral, we do have responses back, and that's where we do get these questions on why they've come up and asking for these approvals. And it is up to the landowner to obtain those appropriate approvals from the province with respect to anything, no different than if it was an Alberta environment approval that was required. If there's concerns, it goes right back to who they got that approval from.
Okay, further comments? We do have a recommendation before us. Yes, Councillor Lewis.
Just one last comment. I had no idea that the last excavation had started or stopped, which is great. It speaks a lot to the development or the removal. As far as traffic on 814, the approach or the driveway access is at a place where traffic is slowing down anyway. So I wouldn't see it as a hazard, and I drive that area a lot. I'm absolutely comfortable with this extraction.
So you're comfortable with moving the recommendation with the terms that have been read into the record for today then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor to approve development permit application D21344 subject to the following conditions. Just one question before we move forward to administration. Within that recommendation, should it say that council approve direct control development permit application, or just leave it as is, just for clarification?
So it's in the recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
The recommendation we have before us doesn't have direct control. It just has development permit application. I'm just wondering, does it need to say direct control development permit?
It's in the motion.
It is in the motion. Okay, and it's not on. So we do have that, which is a direct control development permit application today. Any further comments before I call the question? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you for that. That was approved. Now moving along to 6A3, finally, I think I've got that one right. Business retention and expansion feasibility study, project funding request, and we have Mr. Evans before us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned, this is the business retention, expansion, and Business Resource Center Facility Pilot Project funding request. The recommendation is that council approve funding for the Business Retention and Expansion Program and Business Resource Center Facility Pilot Project of $89,000 in 2022, $526,000 in 2023, for a total of $615,000 to be funded from the Special Purpose Operating Reserve, and that administration pursue additional grant opportunities for this initiative to offset the draw from the reserve. Mr. Chair, as the council will recall, on March 1st, the Governance and Priority Committee approved the project charter for this project. It is assumed that the first year of this project will be largely funded by a coal community transition initiative, or CCTI, grant through the federal government, administered through Prairies Can. As per the project charter, Leduc County will be responsible for ensuring that funding is available for both the county's contribution to the first year, the grant funded portion of the project, which is anticipated for the first year, and for the portion of the project that will not be eligible for CCTI funding, which is the second year. Due to the completion of the CCTI program on March 31st of next year, funding will not be available through CCTI past that date. Having said that, administration have identified a number of alternative grant programs that we believe may be a good fit for this project. And we're proposing to continue to work with various funding agencies over the coming months to establish continued support for the second year of the project. However, due to the need to establish certainty for the participants in the 2-year project, administration is recommending that council commit to funding both years of the project in case alternative funding options do not materialize. And I will just note that it would be subject to receiving CCTI funding in the first year, which we have not quite yet heard back yet on, but we are still confident in. So with that, Mr. Chair, that's my report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
All right, questions on the presentation? Councilor Vandenberg?
So your report refers to the Business Resource Center. Just for clarity, is that the NRC, Nisku Recreation Center?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we're proposing to repurpose the Nisku Recreation Center for this pilot project.
Thank you. We're in public. So the business retention and expansion pilot being featured through our Nisku Recreation Center is very positive for us to move forward in. Fits well with our draft strategic plan. And I guess my question is around the messaging opportunities right now. 2 things, actually. You've heard from me before that this period of time of 24 months, I'll be checking in at 18 months for lots of success. And then secondly, the messaging opportunity to our economic development partners and to the businesses in the area. Can you tell me that there will be a strategy to get this good news out there so that we can see some positive spin-off and result, some results back?
Mr. Chair, absolutely. A portion of the funding for this project would be dedicated to a marketing plan and marketing activities for this project. We have had initial discussions with many partners throughout the region, but certainly an important component of the project is communications with the business community, with the public, with our various partners in the region.
Further comments? I have a question for you on your governance structure. That's on page 120 and 129 of our packages. Just a question. I see you have your project managers, and again, it all has to do with economic development, which you've come a long way. I really like what you're doing here. I'm just wondering, our local food coordinator in ag, would that better be placed in an economic development governance structure as an economic development pursuit with agriculture, or is it still better suited to lead that in ag? And again, the benefits of having that person with this dynamic group of people. Just a comment, is it something that you might consider adding that person as an asset within our economic development? Because that's where I see that person is driving our ag, I guess, economy. Thank you.
I might defer to Mr. Coleman.
Yes, seeing how I determine structure for this organization, yeah, it's the best left answer to me, I guess. I think the fit is good where it's at now. This really is about relationships and partnerships, but the ag focus and out in the ag environment is the critical piece. So there is a lot of interaction now between departments. The whole idea around where we've placed economic development as a department area is that it allows for those synergies throughout the organizations.
Okay, I think there is a real tie to both departments at the very least if they remain working together, and there's lots of opportunities I think that would come in, referrals going back and forth. Further comments?
Yeah, to that particular page in 120 kind of reminds me again, thank you for bringing that up. You have a stakeholders list, and I think it's important to hear an agreement that this is a list that's including but not limited to these potential stakeholders. We don't know where some of stakeholder opportunities may lie. They certainly will not be excluded. And I think it's worthwhile mentioning that. And I'm seeing a nod from Jordan. But that's an important piece to understand. It's not excluding. It's not totally inclusive.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. This is an initial list of some of the agencies that we've had contact with and that are important to the project. But as noted, crucially important to the project are interactions with the business community, the public, and a number of other stakeholders throughout the area and the region.
Yeah, lots of work, lots of good thought out work on this. I'm looking forward to, if it passes today, to seeing the benefits to the county and the long road and improvement of economic development that we've transitioned over the last few years. Go ahead, Councillor Lewis.
Just a question, when your anticipated date to hear back for the funding for the grant?
Mr. Chair, we don't have a specific date. We are anticipating within the coming weeks.
It's good to hear. Further comments? And I'm looking for, yes, Councillor
Make a
Vandenberg.
motion that council approve funding for the Business Retention Expansion BRE program and Business Retention Center BRC, which is now the NRC facility pilot project of $89,000 in 2022 and $526,000 in 2023 for a total of $615,000 to be funded from a special purpose operating reserve, and that administration pursue additional grant opportunities for this initiative to offset the draw from the reserve.
All right, we do have a recommendation before us. Further comments before I call the question? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you for that. And now we have the annual appointment of the Fire Guardians. Come forward. Gentlemen, could I get you to look into the cameras and introduce yourself? I think that's important that our residents see those beautiful suits. I'm kidding. Go ahead. They see you guys lots, but thank you. We are in ties today, and there's no money asked, but that's okay.
Changed my approach when you figured out the last one. Through the chair, today we're just here as our annual reappointment of fire guardians, and you yourself, sir, will be happy to hear that we have one new fire guardian in your area.
Boom.
And potentially another one coming soon. Two, yeah.
Thank you for that.
So I'll pass it over to
We do
Deputy
have to
Gordon.
amend the report sessions. We just interviewed them yesterday and gave them some training yesterday, so we could give it to you prior to. So they've been added to the fire guardians list for this rec area. It's an Alan Thurston and Karen Thurston. And they're middle-aged, which is really good for us for fire guardians. So this is just typical what we normally do every year. List all the fire guardians. Now we've confirmed with them they're going to be fire guardians this year. We're moving forward with the fire guardian program. We're also we're leaving it up to fire guardians right now to it's their choice whether they go out and issue permits or not, or they still do it over the phone. It's whatever they're comfortable doing. So we're not forcing them to actually visit the sites right now. We're just leaving it up to them.
Comments? Go ahead, Councilor Lewis.
You have a long list of name and numbers on the screen right now. Can residents call any one of these people if they're looking for a fire permit?
And they call, if they're going to issue by phone, yes.
Okay.
Typically what happens is I'll call our office and then Dawn will look up the person in that area.
Okay.
So what we're going to try and do is we're trying to steer them away from the counselors. And we've always tried to do that. To try and steer them away from the counselors and actually give the fire guardians names first. So that's what we continue to do.
Okay, traditionally in the past, you've had a training supper and brought the group together. Is there any idea of going ahead with this year?
We're still waiting. Well, we're looking forward to hopefully bringing the bylaw forward.
Okay.
So hopefully we can get that done. And typically we can't. In the past, we haven't had it later than April because of harvest and, because of planting and stuff. So we'll see how that works out in that time schedule. We might look at something in the fall.
Okay. Further comments? Yes, Councilor Vandenberg.
Yes, I am. For a lot of people, going to the website and typing in the word fire guardians is probably the first act of business. So I'm just
My name
checking
just
our
comes up.
website. And it's not, pardon me?
They would look up fire permit, not guardian, not fire.
So the
guardian.
names are still from last term, I think. And so I guess I'm testing and it doesn't immediately just pop up. So you have to do a little bit of digging in order to get to, so my mind says fire gardens and Councillor Lewis says fire permits. Can we just double check that that is easier to get to get to that list. Thank you.
Yeah, we can update that so that the website searches it better, finds it better for you. And also the names won't be updated until after today when you reconfirm the fire guardians with the new list.
We did delete a couple of fire guardians that retired. So we took them off immediately, so.
Are there any recognitions for whatever fire guardian wrote the most permits in a year?
Are you gonna prove that?
Well, I got my book. Again, I think I'm probably going to continue to go on the phone unless there's questions that I need to do an inspection on something that doesn't sound right. But it worked really well last year. I mean, people called in, there were terms that were set. They seemed really serious about their conditions and calling in and doing their things. And I don't think we had a lot of burns other than people that didn't get permits that ran. So the system's working. I haven't got a call yet. Go ahead, Councillor Lewis.
For the sake of the public listening, can you just talk about the time frame from when you need a permit to when you don't need a permit? And where you would need a permit?
Well, that's listed on the website. And it's actually in the new bylaw where we've got it listed that what's the requirement of the Forest Fire Protection Act from the 1st of March to the 31st of October.
I think the one thing you'll find from council since we're live is we sometimes ask questions which are the obvious, just so some of our public can, hear the date. It's March 1st until a certain date as that. And so a lot of the stuff is just a secondary way of getting information out today to go forward on that. There is a recommendation today. Is anybody willing to move that? Larry? Larry is going to move that council appoint the personnel list in Appendix A as fire guardians for the 2022 fire season as per the Province of Alberta Forestry and Prairie Protection Act, revised Statute of Alberta 2000, Chapter F19, Section 4. Yes, Councilor
Just
Manager.
for interest, so our fire permits are required between March 1st and October 31st?
That's correct.
Great, that is what's on the website. Thank you.
All right, and I do have that recommendation before us. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. We are an agreeable group today.
Thank you
And
for your
finally,
support.
I don't believe there's one left. That concludes our business. Ray, do you want to adjourn us? Thank you for that, everybody.